Bitcoin is fundamentally different today than it was 4 years ago. We have institutions buying, we have Bitcoin treasury companies, and opinion in the Bitcoin space is divided on treasury companies, but I see them as a net positive because they are a constant source of buy demand. And I call that the infinite bid. They exist to buy Bitcoin. And you have countries getting into it too now. So there is really little in common in this cycle and in the future with anything in the past as Bitcoin is starting to evolve. So I'm really bullish still. There is nowhere to go for us other than Bitcoin. And there's nowhere else for Bitcoin to go other than up.
Investors tend to be confused by Bitcoin's peculiar behavior, which is that it reacts swiftly to negative news but slowly to positive news. Samson Mow uses the operation of liquidity in Bitcoin markets to illustrate this. Any anxiety or uncertainty can be quickly priced in because Bitcoin is one of the most liquid assets in the world and trades worldwide around the clock. Traders respond quickly to unfavorable news and selling pressure immediately emerges. On the other hand, positive advances function differently since it takes time for new capital to enter the market and for larger investors to modify their positions. Good news typically does not result in immediate price movements. However, Mao contends that this mismatch is temporary. The market structure shifts when sellers are completely depleted and there is less product left for sale. Because there isn't enough Bitcoin left to absorb it, even tiny increases in demand can cause prices to rise rapidly at that point. At this point, as the market moves from distribution to rapid revaluation, price swings can become abrupt and violent.
Today, they can replicate gold out of lead. I don't see the boomers worried about that. That is a bigger threat to gold than quantum computing is to Bitcoin. I don't know why people listen to Nick anymore. He's investing in companies that are helping crypto projects transition to post-quantum. I mean, he has motivations to say these things and instill this fear in the market. But quantum computing is not a threat. I was looking at this TikTok video the other day, like some guy put a picture of a hole in the floor of an elevator, and then the guy coming into the elevator looked down and saw the hole in the elevator and he like panicked. That's how I view the quantum drama right now. It's like some people put this picture of a hole in the floor and people are looking at it and going, wow, it's scary. We're going to fall in that hole. But again, like the threat of quantum is not to Bitcoin. It is to everything else. Like the entire banking system, all of this infrastructure, encrypted government sensitive communications. This is all going to be destroyed when quantum computers arise. And I think the Bitcoin network will be able to upgrade far sooner. And we already have a number of mitigations that can be deployed relatively quickly. When there is a clear and present danger to Bitcoin, the Bitcoin nodes, the plebs, the network, they upgrade very fast. And it's not going to be like a slow fix that's going to take years. And we also have preventative measures too. Blockstream has a lot of research underway to mitigate the threat, but the threat does not exist in any form factor today that is remotely credible. All of the quantum computing marginal threats are them directing the quantum computer to find the answer and showing the computer this is what the answer is, and then it can get there. So that's the state of the quantum computing world today. And yes, it can accelerate quickly, but it's not the biggest threat to Bitcoin. The quantum computing is not the biggest threat to Bitcoin. Quantum computing is the biggest threat to everything else, because Bitcoin will be the resilient functioning network. There's a show on Netflix which was called 0 Day. And that was when a lot of banking systems were shut down because of hackers. But if you think about the quantum threat, it is not that someone's going to use a quantum computer to hack your bank account, Giovanni. They'll just shut down the whole banking system and nuke it from an external threat actor. And that will be the end of the banking system completely. So no one seems to be worried about that. So everything is directed to Bitcoin only, but I just don't see it as a rational conclusion. Well, I think the pullback for the metals is warranted because it was overheated. But the core thesis there is that people are looking for hard assets and they're looking for things that are not easily dilutable. But the problem is they need to relearn the fundamentals of why gold and these metallic monies failed over time, which is they can be manipulated heavily and they are largely paper-based. Like it's not a spot-driven market. It is mostly paper. in the majority of markets, I think China being one of the exceptions where they're physically delivering. But it's still a positive development. Like, I think I'm not unhappy that these metals ran. Like, it took them 50 years to, get where they are today. So I think that shows that there were people with conviction, and the thesis was right, that you want hard assets, not fiat infinity printable paper. And eventually some of those people will rotate into what is digital gold, which is Bitcoin, because they understand that the supply of gold and silver is not capable, and you cannot know the full supply. It's not auditable. You can also see, like, there are technologies out there like fusion technology that will be able to create gold from lead. Silver, even though it has industrial applications, which was one of those reasons why people were valuing silver highly and saying it should keep going up, that industrial process is actually it works both ways. It's a byproduct of industrial process too, but it's also consumed in industrial process. Whereas Bitcoin is not a byproduct of anything, and it is not used in anything, but it actually has one big replacement use case, which is replacing real estate, people storing value in housing and apartments and land. So I think eventually people will come to understand that, Bitcoin is better. It is verifiable. You can teleport it anywhere in the world. You can send it without any intermediary, and the spot markets are incredibly liquid. So I guess that's the reason why Bitcoin takes a hit. And we're not going up with anything good, but everything bad that happens, we take a hit. But the reason for that is because Bitcoin is so liquid that it can react to any concerns anyone has in the market at any time, even on a Saturday and a Sunday. But eventually this has to stop. Like, Bitcoin's been in this punching bag for months or maybe a year. And eventually Bitcoin will demand the respect that it deserves because of the finite supply. And people kind of think, oh, there's so much paper Bitcoin, like there's so many people selling, but that will only happen until it stops. And when it stops, it'll be very abrupt, and then you'll see the reaction in the market when the supply shock hits. Bitcoin is not designed to appreciate in price. The appreciation in price is a function of the scarcity, which it functions the same as anything else that is scarce: real estate, precious metals, etc. So it will go up because there is increasing demand, and it will go up because there is utility to it, which is what he identified as what it was created to be: decentralized, permissionless, uncensorable money. There is great utility in that function, especially today, in this day and age, where you're seeing more and more attempts at asset seizure. So one of my predictions for this year was that Elon Musk is going to come back to Bitcoin. And this is because in California, they're trying to pass the wealth tax, right? And a lot of his friends are from the All-In podcasts, like David Sachs and Chamath and those guys, and they are feeling this pressure. And Elon knows that too. It's just whenever he has cycles to really reason through this thing, I think he's going to make the same conclusion, because you can run from asset seizures, but to a certain point. Like, people are moving to Texas now, but what happens in 10 years in Texas? Does it become blue? I don't know. Nobody knows these things. Or will they try to change the law to tax wealth and unrealized capital gains? Because what you're fighting is a core system of human civilization, which is people that want to take and believe that they can take indefinitely when you can't. Like, money doesn't grow on trees. And this is what we're finding. Like, it doesn't. And hard assets are repricing the world. And in repricing the world, this is where you see hard assets appreciate in price. There is no model out there that predicts Bitcoin goes down over time. Some of them taper, like Bitcoin 24 from Saylor, but every other model, stock to flow, power law, everything is numbered go up. And I think that is the direction it's going to go. So people just have to realize you can be bearish, you can think it'll go down, but just remember, it'll go back up after. Even as the most staunch bear, you cannot think it's going to go down and go to zero unless you're just oblivious to the world today.
Bitcoin has had a protracted period of volatility during which price action has found it difficult to mirror the swift expansion taking place throughout the wider financial scene. Bitcoin has frequently seemed stuck, moving sideways, experiencing abrupt pullbacks, and trying the patience of long-term holders. According to Samson Mow, the market is preparing for a much more significant structural change rather than showing signs of weakness. According to him, sovereign states, organizations, and businesses are progressively realizing the consequences of inflationary fiat systems, and Bitcoin is still in the early stages of a worldwide monetary shift. He thinks that although this process is gradual, uneven, and frequently misinterpreted, it is eventually irreversible. Rather than treating Bitcoin as a short-term trade, Mao frames it as the foundation of a new financial era, one built on digital scarcity, transparency, and absolute verifiability.
Well, the 4-year cycle is a myth. Like, there is no reason why, if Bitcoin adoption is structurally changed, which it has, that it'll simply follow the previous cycles. Like, Bitcoin is evolving constantly. The market dynamics are evolving constantly. There's no reason why, if you flip your coin 4 times, you go heads, heads, tails, heads. Like that's just irrational thinking. If you're just trying to align it, like it's got to follow this schedule, then I think that is a recipe for disaster, especially if you're betting a significant amount of your money on that cycle, because Bitcoin is fundamentally different today than it was 4 years ago. We have institutions buying, we have Bitcoin treasury companies, and opinion in the Bitcoin space is divided on treasury companies, but I see them as a net positive because they are a constant source of buy demand, and I call that the infinite bid. They exist to buy Bitcoin. And you have countries getting into it too now. So there is really little in common in this cycle and in the future with anything in the past, as Bitcoin is starting to evolve. I think if you want to follow something in history, what you should be looking at is the chart of the German mark against gold, where it's kind of going like this, up and down very rapidly in a period of a year as you have a change from one system to another. But that is exactly what Bitcoin is. It's the shifting of one system, the broken fiat system, into a sound money system. And if you need any more reasoning or evidence to that extent, it's the precious metals. It is that shift to hard assets. And that in and of itself should be an indicator that this is the trend that we are following. Bitcoin has just been slammed from every single possible angle. Like, we're having the 4th red month in a row, which is very unusual to say the least, but we've seen everything have a run. We've seen metals have a run. Gold almost 2x its market cap. Silver 4x'd, I think. Close to 4x their market cap. And these are, $20 trillion assets, and they're able to do that. And we've seen Bitcoin go flat, sideways, and down now. AI stocks have had their run too. So everything's had a run except for Bitcoin. So I think what we're looking at is the end of the bear market. The spring is coiled so tightly that it's about to rebound, especially as we see things rotate. People taking profits from metal trades and rotating into Bitcoin because they see Bitcoin has been flat for the past year largely, and it is the next opportunity to rise up. No, I've increased it actually to 1.33 million in 2026 because I think we're overdue for a bull run. And I am a permabull, and I don't really see the existing system lasting that much longer. The big volatility and run-ups in precious metals, to me, is the biggest indicator. And that shatters another common myth, which is Bitcoin is too big to 10x. It is not too big to 10x. The increase in gold market cap from 20 to 40 is enough to 10x Bitcoin, and maybe even more. And it shows like the largest asset on the planet could almost double itself in a very short time frame. So all of the cards are on the table now. But I think people underestimate exactly how much resolve is in the Bitcoin hodlers. Like, we are the buyers of last resort. We are the holders of last resort. There is nowhere else to go. I have a friend that was that came into some cash, some fiat money, and he's he's going to put it all into Bitcoin because he also came to the same conclusion. Like, what am I going to buy? Am I going to buy gold at 4,500 or whatever it is, or silver at 70, $80? Am I going to buy real estate? Like, there is nothing else to invest in for the long term other than Bitcoin. There is nowhere else to go. And I think another thing that people have to realize is you can predict the price is going to go down, but any big drop is a discount. Like, just take strategy because they're the biggest. You're going to let them average down. If we go down to 60, 65, whatever people are predicting, they'll start averaging down. How long will the market let them average down before the market understands that they don't need to let strategy average down? They could sell higher because strategy is willing to pay higher. And when these other treasury companies come into play, I think we're going to see a lot more shock in the demand of Bitcoin because, there's only so many days in a week. When strategy has announced their buy, there's that joke like, Bitcoin will go down because they announced their buy. But when you have several big players all buying, there are not enough days of the week where it can safely drop down without another big player scooping it up. So I'm really bullish still. There is nowhere to go for us other than Bitcoin. And there's nowhere else for Bitcoin to go other than up.
According to Samson Mow, the price of Bitcoin is not intended to rise on its own. Rather, because of its inherent scarcity and increasing use over time, its price increases. Similar to other restricted resources like gold or real estate, Bitcoin's value rises while supply stays constrained and demand increases. He highlights, however, that Bitcoin is unique because it also serves a powerful practical purpose. Additionally, Mow links the long-term potential of Bitcoin to more general political and economic developments. He contends that more people, especially well-known persons, would start to re-evaluate Bitcoin as a means of safeguarding their wealth as governments investigate measures like wealth taxes or even taxes on unrealized gains. He notes that these trends are starting to put pressure on even affluent investors and entrepreneurs, which may eventually cause more money to return to Bitcoin. He believes that Bitcoin is a component of a broader trend in which the entire global financial system is gradually being repriced by hard assets. He also disputes the notion that Bitcoin will eventually lose value. There isn't a realistic model that depicts Bitcoin going towards zero, according to Mow. He believes that the long-term path is still upward due to its fixed supply and rising global demand, even though some forecasts point to brief cycles or slowdowns. The fact that Bitcoin has consistently rebounded and expanded following each significant decline is something that even ardent detractors cannot deny. If you find value in this content, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this.